What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another Facebook Live. We have Piroska Bata in the house. Let's go ahead and dive in and figure out who is Piroska Bata and what is it that you do.
Hi, Kevin. Thanks for having me on Epic Living and Live. And so my name is Piroska Bata, and I'm actually by trade a registered nurse. And I've been nursing for 30 years. At this point, I'm also a certified hypnotherapist. I am also a professional coach, and that means I coach career coaching, health coaching, couples, as well as groups. And I'm right now studying to become a psychotherapist.
Awesome.
And I'm also an NLP master prac, but I'm also a licensed trainer for NLP. So when I do stuff, I actually combine all the stuff that I do. And I'm also a Reiki master, and I teach Reiki. And
nice.
I've done Reiki also in the hospital. So when I was hands-on nursing. So I think that's it in a nutshell. I mean, there's other stuff I do, but that's sort of the core.
That's awesome. I love hearing that. So now my biggest thing is that everybody has a story behind them, and I really feel that a lot of times they need to get that out to the world because like I've heard before, you know, someone may be drowning out there and your story is a life jacket that could actually help save them. And I want to go back into early childhood. What was it for you growing up? Where were you raised? And what were your beliefs growing up? Did you have limiting beliefs? And what led you to where you are today?
Okay, so wow. It can be a long story, but I'm going to make it very short. To start out with, just for people to imagine, all my family for over 150 to 200 years were born in 3 different countries, but in the same place. Because I'm from the Balkans, so it's a sort of southern Carpathian basin, Balkans, and so because of wars, there was a lot of changing of borders. So I am Hungarian, but I was born into former Yugoslavia. When I was 3 years old, we moved to West Germany. Then before I turned 10, we moved back to Yugoslavia. So I went to school in Germany, grade school, then in Yugoslavia, finished grade 8, and then we came to Canada. Awesome. So at a very early age, I had to learn a bunch of languages very quickly. And one of the things I learned during that time, so a few things. When I was very, very young, my family was actually very loving. Like for the first 3-4 years of my life, all I remember is I was like a little fairy child, just like blonde hair, green eyes, just la la la, rainbows and tulips and whatever. No, just truly like, and even my family sometimes was wondering, like, is she okay? Like, is she with us? Like, what's going on, right? But I was just this really loving. My dad said an angel came into our house. That's how he described it.
Oh, wow.
So it was like really, it was very, very sweet of him. But he was also a very tough teacher. And one of the things I learned from my dad throughout that time, especially when I started biking and swimming, he would take us in the river and he would make us swim. And we were like very young. And it was just him and my brother and me. And like, I mean, this was a turbulent river. And I used to get scared, like, oh my God, can I do this? Can I do this? And I was like maybe 5-6 years old. And he's like, no, we got to go more. We got to go more. You can do it. You can do it. And I remember once we did it, I came out and I said, oh my God, Dad, I didn't know I can do it. And he goes, see? I said, oh my God, I can do more than I think I can. So I learned this at a very early age, that what you think your capacity is, kick it up a notch. Because you all, and as a kid, like even physically. So when I got older, I always challenged myself physically. So I was in Hungarian folk dancing. I wasn't really an athlete in school because I came to Canada as a teenager. So I didn't really get into like athletics here. But as an adult, I always worked out. And then I got injured at work and I ended up doing Tai Chi and martial arts, like karate mainly, but I did Brazilian jiu-jitsu, kickboxing, and I got my black belt.
Oh,
and
wow.
I pushed myself, like and it was tough. Like I have broken ribs on both sides and a concussion, a broken nose. So it was not like hey, here you go. It's like I had to work really hard for it. It took me like 10 years. But the bottom line is, what I learned was that you can push yourself further and to take risks, because if you don't take risks and jump into certain things, obviously calculate risks, you're never going to get anywhere. But the other thing I learned, and this is a really interesting one, because as we grow up, we think people know us because we know ourselves, or to a certain point. When I was in Yugoslavia versus Germany versus Canada, people treated me very differently and they called me different names. And I was bullied, by the way, in each place. And they called me very different names, but they looked at me differently. And what I realized was, oh my God, depending on which country I'm in, they totally put me in a different box. They don't even know me.
Mm-hmm.
So when I was like 15, 16, I thought, oh, who gives a rat's behind? They
Yeah.
don't even know me. So if they don't want to, if someone doesn't want to take the time and right away puts me in a box, I don't have time for them anymore because they don't actually take the time to get to know me. And I learned that at a very early age. And so that was like a gift that my parents gave me. But I also traveled a lot. And because we traveled in Europe a lot and I saw a lot of things, and even when I came to Canada, like I got into a lot of activities like scouting. I
Mm-hmm.
was a scout leader. I mean, I can start a fire anywhere. I can build lean-tos. I can catch fish. I even used to go hunting. Like I really, like, you want to put me in the woods, I can survive in the woods. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
and I'm comfortable.
Mm-hmm.
The thing that I learned was that, and that my dad sort of really taught me is that if they don't want to get to know me and pushing your boundaries, when it comes to that, I learned about cultural context, meaning they come from a different background or a different way of speaking or a different way of living. And so how they see you is from their eyes, their perspective of where they're from. And so I have seen people living differently or different religious practices at a very early age. Does that make sense? So that
Mm-hmm.
I saw that very early on. So when I came to Canada, people said, oh, we're multicultural. I'm like, yeah, okay, where I come from, well, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But I also experienced communism, like
Mm-hmm.
really was behind the curtain, meaning Hungary, Romania. Romania was, people were it was treated terribly. Same in Hungary. I remember guns, dogs, like it was a very different world. And I was safe. I'm not saying I wasn't safe, but it's just when you live that and you live in fear, that kind of fear, it's a very different feel. Versus when we came to Canada, it was like, wow, look at all the stuff there is. Like there's so many choices, and
Mm-hmm.
same in the States. Like you have no idea. People have no idea how blessed they are in this country, in North
Oh,
America.
exactly. Yes,
Oh my
exactly.
God, you have no idea. Like
Yes.
even today, if you go to certain places, they don't have running water. I remember being out in the summers. My dad insisted that we go out to my second cousins and cousins. They lived on
Mm-hmm.
a farm, no
Yep.
electricity, no running water.
Wow.
Literally, you had to throw a bucket down a well, wheel it up, and then and yet they were clean, they were tidy, everything was perfectly done. But we just fed the animals. We were helped around the house. Fed the chickens, whatever we had to do. Like we were just out there with my brother. And so it taught me a very different way to appreciate simple things in life, and that it doesn't matter where you come from and what you're like, how you live. There's nothing wrong with that. Like in a sense of what your values are and stuff like that. You don't know what people are like. And for me, it opens up doors that I understand people. So when I used to teach nursing students who came from all over the world, well, mainly from Asia and Africa, I was very comfortable with them, yet I was not from there. And they said, you understand us? I go, well, I get you because I'm an immigrant. But I understood the lifestyle or the way things are there, because they may come from an area where there's certain things are not there, or certain modern things are there. So I was able to relate to them on a different level. And then I don't assume anything because you just don't know.
Exactly. I love that. Hey, I want to talk about, I want to go back into talking about calculated risk, because there's a big difference between risk and calculated risk. And, everybody has their own version of that and everything. And, like when it comes to risk, like I said, everybody has their own definition. But like for me, like a risk is like going out, buying a lottery ticket. You can lose money. You can lose a lot of money depending on what you want to put into it. You go to the casino, lose a lot of money. You could go buy an expensive car that you can't afford. That's a risk. But whenever you're talking about calculated risk, one of the biggest things that Mike Gillespie told me, which him, is that what's the worst that could happen? Like if you work a job, but yet that you want a side hustle, or you want to try to start a side business, but something may be holding you back. The biggest thing that I learned from him was, what's the worst that could happen? Like, let's say if you fail at it, you still have your regular job. You're still bringing in money from the job to afford, your car, your house payment, your bills and everything. But obviously you need to make the calculated risk depending on how much money you're going to actually take from, your pocket from your job and everything. So what is your take on something
Oh,
like
you
that?
know what? The first thing I thought of
Yeah.
was whitewater rafting.
Yes.
I know you're gonna think I'm gonna crazy, but I've gone whitewater rafting
Yeah.
quite a few times.
Mhm.
And so the first time I went, I thought, oh my God, what have I signed myself up to? Because you have to sign your life away basically.
Yeah.
And they give you all this stuff. And so the first day we went, we were obviously in a boat that someone was actually guiding. And the second day we were on a boat that we could guide. But my girlfriend talked me into that we should go in a kayak.
Mhm.
Now we're talking, I've never been in a sea kayak, whitewater rafting. I've kayaked before,
Mhm.
I've canoed before, I've done all the water sports. And we were very fit at the time. We were actually working on our black belt. So she goes, "You're fit. You're fine." I said, "I don't have any white water experience." Like, so everything was fine until we're in the kayak. Now, having
Mhm.
said that, I knew this was my calculated risk. I want to take the risk because I want to have the experience, right? So
Mhm.
there's that desire. I want to have the
Yeah.
experience. But I also knew, oh, what happens if I fall out? And my life was in danger the whole time. So it's like, your life's already signed away.
Mhm.
But what else is in there that can catch me? And I knew that they had all the people who were the employers or the staff for this particular outfitter. They were trained in all of this stuff. They had kayakers there. They had people in the water. So they were really aware that we're coming down and they're watching you and they're filming it. So they were taking pictures as well. So
Mhm.
they were really there for you. Anyway, I had a very spectacular, I still have it on video, very spectacular falling out of the kayak. It actually went 90 degrees and I was at the front. I bounced
Mhm.
back into the
Oh, wow.
oh my God, you can see it. You can see my Tivas, right? Like which ones I
Yeah.
wear
Yeah.
but we were wearing helmets. We were wearing life jackets. We
Mhm.
had, we were updated on what to do. They taught us what to do if you fall out, where to go, how to even get out to the shore. I mean, one of the times I still have a piece of my calf or whatever missing in the Ottawa River because of it.
Mhm.
But we survived and we were fine. Now my friend didn't tell me she didn't know how to steer, so that was I was not
Yeah.
impressed with that. But the thing was, we had a good time, but it was calculated because I know there were safety nets in place.
Mhm.
I trusted myself. I'm a good swimmer. I was fit. We were able to do it. The first
Mhm.
rapid was the worst. That was like I really thought we were actually going to die. To be honest, that was like I met
Wow.
oh
Mhm.
my God, I was beyond
Mhm.
belief. And I have had near death experiences, and this wasn't a near death experience. This was just sheer anxiety and fear of oh shit.
Wow.
Like sorry, I don't know if I can say that here,
Oh,
but
yeah, you're good.
it was a definite like we're gonna die. But that was a calculated risk. Now, having said that, we did it. We still tell the story. I have the pictures to prove it in the video, and we had a great time. I took my son after that.
Mhm.
He had a fantastic time and he decided as an 8-year-old to go down a certain rapids with I said to him, Jacob, I can't take you. I don't trust myself that I can take care of myself, but I don't want to take you down because I don't know if I can bring you with me because the rapids are very fast. But he
Mhm.
really wanted to go, and one of the employers said, hey, let me take you. So they did. So then he was kind of like, they kind of lost. I don't know what happened. He was around somewhere. Then a kayaker came and grabbed him. So he says, hey, mom, they were so nice. They came and got me. And I'm thinking to myself, of course they did. That's their job. But the point was there was a safety net put in
Mhm.
place. So he had an amazing experience because we
Mhm.
did a calculated risk. So I
Mhm.
think if you look at things in that way, that you can push yourself to a certain point, but you
Mhm.
may need to make sure that there's that safety net there. Like you're not jumping completely like, I don't know what's going to happen. Sometimes it is a leap of faith,
Mhm.
but you still need to make sure, are my wings there for me to fly kind of thing.
Exactly. I love that. And you're talking about, calculated risk and everything. And I want to talk about something today. And I got the idea off of Clubhouse. It's a very addicting social media platform. It's very educational. So many opportunities that are there if you really focus and ask the right questions. But I was actually listening to it today, and they were talking with Grant Cardone. Anytime Grant Cardone talks, everybody listens. And one of the things he was talking about is when we're growing up, we're never really talked about, we're never really taught about targets in our life. We're kind of like save for a
Oh,
rainy day. And we don't really like have these targets where to go. And the thing is, it's like, if you don't have a target, you're just kind of like just going against the wind without, and you're just blindfolded. And he was talking about like, you have to have a target. If your goal is to be I don't know, a baseball player or something, well, guess what? You have to have a target. And let's say like you strike out every time. You got to set a goal as to what am I going to do to correct myself to, hit that ball or, win more games and try to move forward to becoming that professional baseball player, whatever. Go into a little bit about, talking about targets.
Interesting.
Yeah.
When you were talking about target, the first thing I thought of was that you can have a target, but you need to have values and beliefs around that. So if you truly believe, like, because people can create targets for you, they can tell you this is your goal.
Yeah.
Parents do that, right? I want you to become a doctor, a lawyer. I want you to be an electrician or whatever. Well, you know what? Like, what about like what I want to do, right?
Exactly.
And so I think what's really important is before you even have a target is to find out, is that suitable for you? Is because you can be whatever you want to be, but what are my values and beliefs around a target or goal? And if your values and beliefs are not in alignment with what that target is, it's going to be much harder to attain, or you may need to change your values and beliefs around, let's say the baseball player. If your values and beliefs around playing baseball is I'll just go there and I'll just do it naturally and I don't have to do anything. Well, we all know that's not going to happen.
Yeah.
That you do need to practice and you need to go somewhere where you get coaching and practice, right? So those are values and beliefs are very different. So the same thing goes for anything else in life, is that what is it that I want to achieve and what is it that I need to get onto that place? And it's funny because that's actually a coaching question. I mean, this is something I coach people on.
Yes.
How do you set a well-formed goal? And by the way, most people don't know how to set well-formed goals. That's number one, because they don't have the languaging down. And number two, people set too tight. I actually do not like, and I'm going to be very controversial here, and I'm going to go out on a limb. I don't like SMART goals. They're limiting.
No.
They limit you because it has to be measurable and whatever. What if I really have a big dream?
Yes.
And I can't measure it yet because it's so big. It may take 20 years to get to, and I don't have everything around it that I have. So now I shouldn't have that goal. Well, that's kind of limiting, right? So we have to make sure that, not have to, but we may or can, or we have the opportunity to make sure that we don't limit ourselves. And I find most people limit themselves when it comes to dreams, when it comes to dreaming big. And I tell this to my students, and two of them were valedictorian, and they said to me, and Professor Piroska, you taught us to dream big.
Yeah.
And I think, and that is one of the hallmarks, because you limit too much, then they will just do one thing, and then it's like, now what? And the other analogy I use is this: if you have whatever your standard is or whatever your dream is, if it's only up to here and you reach halfway, you're down here.
Yeah.
Right? But if you say, no, my dream is way the heck up here and everybody tells me I can't reach my dream, but I don't give a rat's behind, I'm gonna say this is my dream. Even if you reach halfway, you're further up than you were here.
Yeah.
So this is where, and I think this is where sometimes people may not share their dreams with you. They may share bits and pieces of their dream because it can be very personal, or it can be very close to them, and they don't want to give away, so to speak. They're still like, it's kind of boiling in there, or cooking, if you will, inside them. They're kind of ruminating on it. But when they're ready, they will say, this is my big dream. In the meantime, they may have smaller dreams. But I think it's really important to have this big dream, just your target. And in the meantime, you can have a lot of other smaller goals and targets in the meantime to get to that big one.
Yeah, exactly. And I want to talk about something that I listened to a while back. I don't remember where it was from, and it made so much sense. And, I chimed in on it. And like, my biggest thing is I love cars. I've been, working on cars for a while. I've been in the car industry for a while. I'm not in it anymore just because it was just too stressful. But
I like cars.
Yeah, I love cars too. I'm a gearhead. Like, I love cars. And like, my favorite car was the Shelby Mustang. And the thing is like, I knew that I couldn't afford it. So I kind of set my goal, like, one of these days I'm going to own a Shelby Cobra. And then one day I was driving, and it sounded like an airplane was about to land next to me on the highway. And it was a Lamborghini. And I was like, oh my gosh, that crushed my dreams of that Shelby. Now I wanted a Lamborghini. And the thing is like, someone was telling me, if you say you want a Shelby, but you're not aiming for that big dream of having that Lamborghini, you're just going to aim for that Shelby. But hey, what if you aim for that big dream of having that Lamborghini, but you may fall short, and you can have that Shelby, but you can keep chasing that Lamborghini while you're driving that Shelby Mustang. And I think a lot of people don't really dream big. They kind of put these limiting dreams on themselves, and it's kind of holding them back a little bit. But yeah, it's just, I wanted to throw that in there.
And actually, that's interesting you say that, because one of the things I've noticed is, let's say, because I've been looking at eventually getting a new vehicle, and I have certain ones, and then I was like, and I always look much bigger than what I can have. And one of the interesting things is, I saw a vehicle in a color downtown Toronto. This was like a few years ago.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh my God, I love that color. Like, what car is this? So I actually went into the dealership. I checked it out. I'm like, and the guy says, how did you see that color? It's like, that's limited edition.
Yeah.
Like, it was a Mercedes AMG. Like, it was like, it's not even supposed to be out. I go, well, I saw it downtown Toronto. Like, I'm telling you. He goes, oh wow. So he let me like listen to the, like, actually I had a chance to play with the Mercedes. I was like, oh my God, it's really nice. Well, after that, everywhere I went, I saw Mercedes everywhere. So sometimes when you put something in there, it literally appears to you, you're like, oh my God, wow. Doesn't mean that I want that Mercedes at this point. But at that time, I was like, wow, I love that color. It was blue. I love blue. So it was like this beautiful metallic blue. I was in love with it. The point is that once you really focus on that, it's amazing what you can manifest.
Oh, exactly.
And it's innocent. It's, oh, sorry.
Oh, you're good.
Can you hear that?
No, I can't.
Okay. No, it sounded like the fire alarm's going to go.
Oh, that's fine. That's fine.
Okay, so sorry, we're going to have fire alarm every once in a while.
No, that's fine. I wanted to go into that whole manifesting. It's kind of crazy because I do a lot of it too, and it's kind of crazy how when you think of something, you do see a lot of it. And also, I'm gonna give you a prime example. Like I have many goals, but one of my biggest goals is obviously I want the Lamborghini. But one of the things is I want to have a vacation home in St. Thomas, U.S. Virgin Islands. And it's like I'm always thinking about it, and like whenever I'll sit and like meditate or whatever and think of, like, I always picture myself leaving the home, arriving at the airport, getting off the airplane, going into I don't know where this house is in the U.S. Virgin Islands, but I know what it looks like, what it feels like, and everything. And whenever I was at training for my job a while back in November, I was on my way back home, and you know how they have the TV screen saying departing Dallas at this time or whatever. Well, there was one that said St. Thomas, U.S. Virgin Islands, departing at like 9:35. I'm like, whoa. Like, I took a picture of it. I'm going to print it out, and I'm obviously going to look at it because one of these days we're going to go to the airport and we're going to board a plane to go to St. Thomas. But it's kind of crazy how you, like you saying, you're always thinking about it and you're always seeing it. So it's just one of those things. So, but yeah, it's really good stuff. But, you know, I really like what you're doing and everything and what you're saying. One of the things that you told me before we got on this live was that, and one of the things I really like about you is that I say certain things and like you don't just accept what I say. You'll kind of put your 2 cents in and you'll kind of put a different twist on a different perspective. And I really like that because so many people in this world get so offended and they just start showing hatred based on what you're saying. And like I've said, don't criticize me, educate me, explain, help me understand why what I said is wrong and what I can do to improve myself. Go into a little bit of that, you know, like you're.
So that was actually a really good conversation because, and I said to you, I said, you're so humble because I love that attitude. And I have that too, is that it's unending learning. You never stop learning in life.
Exactly.
And so I don't know. And I have learned things like today, there was a beautiful post around conversation and discussion. And I posted it. I said, I'm going to repost it was very long, but it was really worth reading. And then from that, I learned something about a book that I can read now. So it was like boom, boom, boom. And I learned it. I agreed with it, but now I want to learn in more depth. And so I think this never ending learning, unending learning, whatever you want to call it, because you just don't know. And here's the interesting thing. It's not even just us, like as adults, but kids can say things, or my students will educate me on something that I just went, oh, wow, I didn't even know that. Or I didn't know that in another place, they do things a little bit differently. The minute we close ourselves off to that is the minute that we're going to stop growing. But when you are willing to be the student, then
That's
it's
fine.
going to be much better. So I'm
Yeah.
going to just turn the mic off for a minute if you want to talk.
Yeah, that's fine.
No, actually stopped. Never mind.
Okay, you're good.
So I know this is,
Yeah.
I didn't even, it was supposed to be last week. I don't know why they're doing it today. They never sent us a message. Anyway, this is fun, isn't it? Fire alarm at the same
That's
time.
fine. This
So
is a raw, authentic conversation. Whatever
yeah,
comes,
exactly.
comes, you know?
Like, but the point is that when we have that attitude, and I find that even as an educator, so let's say my students would ask me something, and I taught cardiac pathophysiology and rehabilitation. I taught anatomy, physiology, pharmacology. I don't know everything. None of us. Nobody knows everything. If you look at pharmacology, there's so many medications and there's so many new ones coming out all the time. There was no way that I was able to know all of it. And I would say to my students, look, guys, I know the base. I can teach you all of this. But if I don't know it, this is where I go to look it up. And I would give them that resource. So as a coach, as an educator, what we can do is tell them, hey, I don't know this. I'm not perfect. I can tell you that, but I know where to find out. And that is really being authentic and genuine versus pretending you know everything. The other part of this is, and I thought of leadership, actually, it just popped into my head, is that some people talk about leadership, but actually when I think of myself and how I am a leader is I call it servant leadership. And one of my, the president of our professional organization did a wonderful editorial on this, what that means. And it is being in service to others. And so instead of me looking at what my needs are, I look at the person and look at what are your needs? What is it that you're looking for? What is your perspective? So that I get to know what their perspective is versus pushing my own perspective on them. Does that make sense?
Oh, yeah, totally.
Because we all come from a different background. Like, you know, my background is so different from having lived in Europe and stuff and traveling all the time. But the thing is that when I don't know something, and if I pretend I do, and there are some people pretend they know a lot of things, and then all of a sudden, you know, I'm thinking to myself, that's actually not correct or it's not accurate, then that kind of becomes inauthentic, right?
Yeah.
And then I don't know. But if I'm having a conversation with you, Kevin, and you and I have conversations offline, on and off, is that then I'm learning something from you on how you learn, how you see things, what you're up to. And by the way, I have a cat here again. Just everybody, as you're watching this, I have cats and they like to come and join the conversation.
Oh, that's fine.
Just in case there's one that appears.
Yeah,
so
that's fine.
But the point is that you really, truly, and this goes also for coaching and even into therapy, we really have to look at their experience and their perspective, right? Because I cannot assume at all what their background is, where they're, even if I know their background, doesn't mean that they are like, we cannot generalize. And so I think it's really, really important to take people in who they are and understand and appreciate their experience and their perspective, because that is theirs, they own it.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly.
And I think that's really important. And I think that's where we can share our experiences, but they are not exactly alike. They just have similarities.
Yeah,
So for example, Mike does the cold, you know, Mike, and I know Tommy does it too. Like they all go out in the cold. Well, I used to do that when I used to go up north. We used to go fishing. We used to always go in Lake Nipissing. Like it was freezing cold. I've done it where we would go up for a yoga week and then we'd be walking into this freezing lake and everybody else thought we were cuckoo, right?
Yeah.
But yet, you know, for us, it was like, well, pushing our boundaries, number one, because I like pushing my boundaries physically and in other ways. But it was also, it was good for us, right? So we just did all that stuff. And now I'm trying to see if I can find people to walk in the Lake Ontario, because I don't want to do it by myself, because someone's going to call the cops on me one day, and then I'm going to be in trouble. But you know what? Like it's just having those boundaries and finding people, but each person's experience will be different. So when you do that, I believe, and when you truly listen, then you get to know where the person really is. Then you can start, there's a starting point versus you think you know, which can be very dangerous because I just know me completely. And even we even, you know, explore ourselves and grow as human beings as we're getting older. For example, my son said to me when he was 18, he said, Mom, I just realized I'm not responsible for other people's feelings. And I said to him, well, you're smarter than me, wiser than me, because it took me 40 years to figure that out, right? Wow. So everybody is at a different, sorry.
That's fine.
Okay, buddy. No.
Yeah.
Oh, they're heavy cats. They're the two
Yeah.
heaviest ones, so they like to come and play. But the point is that he learned something by the age 18 versus it took me a lot longer. And some kids are so much wiser today. I think spiritually there's a different movement now in the world. Versus some of us, I think I was actually quite innocent for quite a long time. Like I was very even now I think it's not, I just have a different way of looking at the world. My brain, it works because of living in different countries. There are certain nuances in each culture I didn't pick up. Does that make sense? So you kind of miss out a little bit on certain growing up kind of connectiveness with your peer group.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I love that. I want to talk about two more things before we end our Facebook Live. You were talking about like we're always learning, and one of the biggest things that it was a kind of like a eye opener for me, and it really made me think. And I'm always thinking, but it was Patrick Bet David. He actually was local to me. He posted on a video. He was in a I don't know where he was, but he had a big crowd, and he was talking about we are always learning, we are always growing and thriving. And he asked people to raise their hand. He said, who graduated from college? And this isn't to bash on college or anybody that's about to graduate or go to college or get out. He said, okay, leave your hands up. So all these people had their hands up that they graduated college. He says, okay, raise your hand if you've ever read a business book or a self-development book. And like 90% of everybody dropped their hands. And he was like, that's the problem with what's going on in society. Once they accomplish the big win, it's like they stop continuing to, learn even more and grow. And like you said, we're always learning, we're always growing. And if I say something that may offend you, say something to me, help educate me to know so I can know. So,
and I think you bring up a really good point about the growing and stuff, because I think when I was in university, you read so many books, like especially nursing. It's a very intensive 4 years, and when I was doing it back then, it was a different program. It was a lot. And so by the time you're done, you're like, oh my God, like I'm done. And that can be in any course that now you're working and you're trying to just get your trade or your profession to get to know them. So initially you're not going to do a lot of reading because you're just trying to fit in. I remember when I graduated from nursing, I thought, oh my God, I don't know anything. And I was really focused on fitting in and getting it down, like getting comfortable in my craft, so to speak. But later on I went back and then I started reading again, but that's my personality though. I always read, research, do things. But for some people, it's almost like, oh my God, I can rest. I can just work. I can make money and kind of live a little because I've been struggling for so long that it's hard for them. But you know what? Those people at some point will hit the same mark as other people do, right?
Yes.
But it's just at different times. So here's the thing. People make assumptions when they want to change or when they are ready for something. And even if the person thinks they're ready, they may not be ready. They have the willingness to be ready.
Yes.
Because they see others kind of succeeding and they're like, oh, okay, so I see Kevin doing this. Oh, maybe I want to do this. But then when they start looking into it, they're like, oh shoot, no, I don't think I want to do that. Maybe I want to do this, right? So, and some people don't talk about it at all. They're totally inside themselves and they just totally ruminate on it and find all the information, but they may not share it with you. But doesn't mean that they're not actually changing internally because they're just more introspective or they're more not as much of an extrovert, they're more introverted. For some people, I'm an extrovert, so I'm talking, and people who know me, I certainly talk a lot, God help me, but I post a lot. But it's just my way of expressing myself. Yeah. And so there's nothing wrong with introversion or extroversion. It's just, we're just different. And that's okay. Because you know what I said to somebody once? I said, it's pretty awesome that the world has so many different kinds of people because it makes it exciting. Because if there was only people just like me, I'd get bored because I'd have to constantly talk to myself. Like, geez, it's not that I don't like myself, but you know what I mean? I'd rather talk to you so I learn about you from your perspective or from someone that's introverted versus if we were all the same. So thank God we're all different and we have all different ways and
Yeah,
different timelines, whatever it is, because that makes the world more interesting. And then we learn from each other. And I think that's the beauty of being alive and being here in this earth, right?
exactly. And I want to bring that up. Like I do so many. I don't act like your average human. I do things a lot differently. And the thing is, it's like I've had countless people tell me, why can't you just be normal? I'm like, because normal is boring, you know? Like I like to do things like I do things like I do a lot of things that people think is weird, but the thing is like I do these things because I know later on it's going to pay off, you know? I want to go into something you were
And that reminded me of something really cool. I
yeah.
had once really short story. I was working in ICU, and there was a family, and there was some conflict between the families, and they were not my patient. I was just across the hall, but the person decided to tell me all these issues, and I'm taking care of a really sick person, and I really don't have time, but I'm like trying to listen to her. And I'm covering for this other patient, and she keeps going on and on and on. I said, well, you know what? It sounds like you need to talk to a counselor or a social worker. Like, I really cannot help you. It's like 2 o'clock in the morning. Not going to fix their problem. And she goes, well, yeah, we talked about them. And she kept going on and on and on. And I finally said to her, I said, you know what? Welcome to the rest of the world. We're all dysfunctional.
Yeah.
And I didn't know what else to say to her. And it was just basically saying, you're normal in your own dysfunction because we are all dysfunctional. And then she kind of thought about it. And she's like, oh. I said, I said, and then I said to someone, show me a functional family, like who's not dysfunctional.
Yeah.
To a certain degree, everybody has something that's different. So for you to be different doesn't mean that you're not normal. It just means you're different. So what's wrong with that? So but people, and the reason people, I think, reason or why this could be happening is that they're uncomfortable because they know what works for them. And so if they see something different, they're uncomfortable with it because they're not familiar.
Oh yeah, exactly.
Right? So you're just different. So just like, you know what? Let's see what happens.
Yeah.
Right?
Exactly. Yeah, it makes so much sense, you know, like everybody's so, I'm not going to say everybody, there's so many people that are accustomed and they're comfortable with doing what they've been doing. And it's kind of crazy because when you look at a little kid growing up, they crawl, right? And then as they grow, they want to try to walk and they fall down, get back up. You know, they fall down, get back up, fall down, get back up. Same thing goes with a bicycle. You start out on a tricycle, then you start out on a bicycle and with training wheels, and then you take the training wheels off and you fall and you keep getting back up. And I really think people should try to use that analogy when they want to try different things. It seems like so many people are scared to fail, but I encourage failure. I love failing. I failed yesterday. And it's just your stepping stones to success. Nobody became a success overnight. They failed their way to success. And that's, you know, one of the things that I'm real big on. And yeah, fail, you know, first attempt in learning, and just kind of, you know, go through life and figure out what it is that you want and just take that first step. And it's going to be uncomfortable. Like my favorite saying is get comfortable with being uncomfortable, because eventually you're going to make it look so easy. And then you're going to have to find something else to get uncomfortable with. But I'm going to go ahead and start closing down the live. It was great having you on. But before we go, what are 3 key things you can give to our audience so they can have infinite possibilities?
Oh, dream big.
Uh-huh.
When you're setting a goal, say it as if it's already happened. It's done. Don't say I will. I will is in the future. It's not in the now. I am receiving $1 million.
Yes.
I am going on vacation to St. Thomas.
Yes.
Then your brain and your being will actually look for ways to actually create that possibility and that opportunity. If you say I will, that's just that, you know. So dream big, say I am. And number 3, look for opportunities, or don't waste opportunities that may come to you in very unexpected ways.
I love that.
So let's say you want something really badly. So one example is I had a magic bullet one Christmas, like many years ago, and it broke. And I thought, oh, and I had a list of things I needed. And I thought, oh, I need to buy a magic bullet. I need to this. And over the Christmas holidays, a friend of mine calls me and says, hey, Piroska, I got presents, like 2 magic bullets. You want one of them? Boom. I had a magic bullet. She gave it to me as a present. I didn't have to buy it. So you never know how things will come to you. Just know what it is that you need, you require, dream big, and let it happen. And I think I think the word is allow.
Mm-hmm.
So highly recommend for people to read a few books. So one of them is Power versus Force.
Mm-hmm.
And the other one is Transcending Levels of Consciousness. It was written by the same author. And we can put it in the link below, like the names.
Yeah, definitely.
Mm-hmm. And the other one is the Road Less Traveled. And I've read these books many years ago. There's a whole bunch of other books. Like 20, 30 years ago, I did a lot of this kind of reading. Anyway, but the Road Less Traveled by Scott Peck is a classic. But Power versus Force is, I keep thinking of the guy that did the Black Hole book, but I get it confused. So I have to get you the right author's name.
Yeah.
But what he talked about is this: when you force something, then you're forcing it. It is less likely that it will happen. When you're running away from something, then you're not really internally motivated because it's a forceful thing. But if you allow and stand in your power and allow it to come to you, and that you're moving towards something, that is much more powerful. And then it's really yours. Does that make sense? It's very different way of being. A lot of energy to push. Well, if you're pushing so hard that you haven't stood in your power to allow it to come, then you miss the point all along. And so there's a lot of energy in that. And when you're forcing, you're actually forcing lack of abundance and scarcity mentality. But when you're allowing, you're saying, no, I am worth, and this is what is coming to me, then you're standing in your power, then you're standing in your own abundance and joy and love and happiness. Does that make sense? So people can step back and just take a breath and say, I am abundant. I am joy.
Yeah.
There's lots in this world, infinite amount of abundance. There's enough for everyone.
Oh, absolutely.
Then your being will attract that mentality, but it becomes your whole being. Then you will attract that, and it may come in a way of someone says, "Hey, you know what? You want to do this? Because I got this extra thing." I went to see Tony Robbins. These are like random things that I think about. I went to see Tony Robbins VIP for free.
Wow.
Someone just said, "Hey, Piroska, my girlfriend doesn't want to go. You want to go with me?" Sure. I paid for parking. That was it. Because he had an extra ticket. He didn't know what to do with it. Nobody wanted to go with him. I'm like, I'm coming. So the thing is that you just don't know how things are going to come to you. And it's not about forcing, just allow. And when you're ready, the universe will provide for you beautifully. You won't even blink an eye.
I love it. I love it.
And on that note,
yeah, it was great having you on. I look forward to getting you back on so we can, chat it up again.
Absolutely.
But before we head off, where can people find you? Email, website, social media?
And I was going to say, this is probably the most exciting one you've had because we had like a fire alarm and cat. Wow. We get through it. So my website is, and we can link it in there, is www.priskasensa.ca or .com. It's very long, so we can put it in. But it means basically, Priska Sensa means ancient teachings. Awesome. Priska is my baptismal name, and it means ancient. And Sensa in Latin, and Sensa means teachings. So that's what it is. There's a new website coming up, thrivenlp.com, and that is for training and neurolinguistic programming. And I'm really ramping up right now my YouTube channel. So if people can please go, it's under my name, Piroska Bata. And I will be doing a lot of health education, especially during the COVID-19 situation. There's a lot of people who are coming to me for help around basic things about health. And because there's just limited a time that they can do these things now because so many things are locked down. So I will be doing basic stuff around health education for just a whole bunch of stuff. I think the first one will be on children being at home because a lot of parents are struggling. So I will have people on. So I'll be posting a lot of that stuff, and that's on YouTube. But I am on Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram, YouTube, and Facebook.
All right. I love it.
All under my name.
Awesome. All right. Well, you take care. We'll chat soon, okay?
Thank you, Kevin. It was a pleasure. Thanks for inviting me. Take care. Bye-bye.